really talking this. So tonight, our building principals are going to present to you their school improvement plans for this year. They're going to present their plans based on different data points. You'll see that our elementaries are pretty much the same set of data, so you'll kind of see how that grows over time. But one thing I did want to point out that you will see that looks very odd when you start looking at some of these charts is in the past, there's the big tests in the state of Illinois, right? At high school, for now, it's the ACT. We'll see what it is in a year or two, but for now, it's the ACT, right? Then our elementary students take the Illinois Assessment of Readiness, or the IAR test. We also take the Illinois Science Assessment. Those scores, some had 4 levels that you could score, and like above proficient, proficient, right? Some had 5. The other thing that was happening that was kind of wonky was that the state of Illinois had set their expectations much higher than the College Board set their expectations, and then backwards mapped that. So students in the state of Illinois that were scoring maybe below proficiency, if you compared them to students in another state, they actually would have scored in proficient or mastery based on those. So Illinois spent the last year and a half doing what they called right sizing. And so they took all of our assessments and have now aligned those into 4 categories so that we can much easier track students as we go along. And then they have readjusted those rates of what it takes to be proficient or mastery and below. So you'll see in the chart that in the past they have historical data and it may have 5 columns and then all of a sudden it jumps to 4. So it's a little hard to do true historical data comparisons, but I just wanted to point that out because when you, like I said, you'll see it in the slides and it will be glaringly look a little odd. So we're going to start with Bethalto East.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to start with our ELA historical data. So we saw kids coming in this year about 8% higher than in the past, which is exciting because our kindergartners who rose up to first grade 9% higher than they had in the past. And then we had our kindergarten group this year coming in 11% higher as well. And what's really neat with that is last year was the first year that we were benchmark screening our 4-year-olds who were going to be rising into kindergarten, and those kids came in with that exposure in pre-K, scoring higher than a lot of our students who did not have that same exposure. So we were glad to see that. Some of our goals. So we set our goal. Last year we had a 3% growth goal as measured for increasing the risk of students in the low risk to college pathway. And then last year we had 50% showing typical aggressive growth. Well, we exceeded our typical and aggressive growth by 18% last year. So we did up that growth goal to 65% this year for our 65% of our students to show typical or aggressive growth. We're really excited about the U-Fly program that we are implementing across K and 1. We're already seeing, we had our benchmark meetings today, and we're already seeing like our conversations around where students are at and what they're doing at this moment is changing. Typically, we were talking in kindergarten about letter names. Now we're talking about letter sounds. In first grade, we were on can kids decode, and now we're like, let's put them in like a reading measure for like paragraph reading. So it's really exciting to see that, and the new program coupled with our RTI process where we are pulling kids into tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. We have a block RTI schedule this year that we're super excited about, that Eagle time. And just continuing the work with our PLTs where they are looking at that data, they're unit planning, they're creating common formative assessments. For math, we also saw this year we're beginning higher, 3% higher than years in the past. So we're excited to see what our kids are going to carry on with math. And we also saw that we had a decrease in the amount of kids who are in that high risk area. For our goals, We maintained our goal where we were at last year because we were right there at that goal. And we continued with that aggressive growth goal of 67% of our kids showing that. A lot of the same work, we're working in our PLTs to plan units, plan CFAs, talk about student data, and then also just building up those conversations about how we respond to students whenever they need more support or whenever they need more enrichment opportunities. As far as our SEL data this year, in our grade level, this is a teacher survey, so the teachers input data on a survey for students. And you can see this year we came in at 89%, which is pretty on par with the average of where we see our kindergarten and first grade students entering with that Savers data. So hopefully we'll see, you know, the same type of growth that we typically see as well. We have amazing supports in our building. Especially with the addition of our social worker who is pulling small groups and just really amazing at meeting the needs of our students. We also have continued with our PBIS, beefing up that Tier 1 system building wide. We start with that Eagle Way Academy where we're really explicit in how we're sharing with kids like what expectations are in the hallway, bathroom, cafeteria, recess, classroom. We have our SEL programs that we use within our classrooms. And our school social worker, if we see a high need in a classroom, she will push in and do an additional whole group zones of regulation, which is really amazing for our kids to have an opportunity for. We have Tier 2 supports with our check-in, check-out, and then again, as I've mentioned, those SEL groups that are led by our social worker. Attendance. So our attendance shows that our preschool continues to trend upward, which is awesome. You know, if we can get these kids starting really young here every day, build those habits, we know that they'll carry into kindergarten and first grade. So historically, we're seeing a trend upward. Some of the things that we're doing as we're continuing to try and build that great attendance is we review our attendance data weekly, and then monthly we also discuss it at our universal team meeting. We do recognitions by classroom, so it's the all Eagles in the nest. If they earn that for 10 days with all students in the classroom, then they get to have 10 extra minutes of recess, which they love. We have our attendance club where we meet with students in the morning who are at or below 85% with their attendance. And that it's really awesome because they think that it's like a school leadership team because I tell them that, you know, I just want to meet with them and know what it is that they love about school. So they think that this is like, you know, they're part of like a really important club, and they are, and it's amazing to get to talk with them and meet with them every morning. We do share our attendance data weekly with our staff, and then monthly I put it out in our parent newsletter. We just started sending out emails like CM does, or like text messages where we're, you know, really like, hey, way to go, you know, you're almost there with those students who are about 80 to 89%. And then also sending out monthly to the students who are above 90% to celebrate them and to let their parents know we appreciate them getting them to school each day. Starting at this quarter, we do a weekly drawing on Monday for students who are at or above 90%, and they get a choice of like a book or a stencil, and we're giving them that recognition for getting to school each day. Doing it on Monday will hopefully push the kids through the rest of the week. And then, of course, we send home letters to let parents know whenever we're getting concerned about attendance. Are there any questions?
Awesome. Thank you.
Good evening, guys. Okay, so for Parkside, with this being my first year, we will go over all of the data, but just so you know, I'm really focused on what we're doing this year and where we're going to go from here, right? Like we have a lot of new people at Parkside, myself included, so we're looking to the future and the things that we can change to improve what's going on. So if we look at some of our historical data for ELA, we are technically down 4% from where we started last year, but we are even from where we ended at the, in the spring of last year. So we didn't lose any ground over the summer. So I'll, kind of take that as a win. As Alyssa was talking about, our historical data did change a lot from them redoing those cut scores. So if you look at the positive, we went from technically only having 1% exceed up to 7%. If you do the math, we had 55% of our students that were partially or did not meet, and now we're only at 13%. So those cut scores changing really did drastically change our numbers as well for the positive. For our ELA goals, we want to try to raise at a minimum of 3%. I mean, if we want to be drastic, we would say 4% to get back up to where we were, but we just want to make sure that our students are growing. So 50% in typical or drastic growth would be awesome. All of the things that we're doing, we have a dedicated intervention block called Eagle Time where our teachers actually share students amongst all the different classrooms, and they're divided between whatever needs that they have for that unit. We do a lot of CFAs on both ELA and math, so it's divided amongst how those students rank in their CFAs. So those groups change every quarter or every unit. We do 3 rounds of reading rounds a day where the students get to choose 3 different activities to do independently, but the teacher also has a small group that they're working with. We have our instructional coaches going around. We do benchmark meetings during those. That's a whole day meeting where all of our title, Ms. Weber, myself, our psych, we all sit down and we actually look at individual students and what we can do to better those students as an individual instead of looking at the whole grade. And then we are actually stretching UFly into 3rd grade. This year it's technically goes to 2nd grade, but we want to make sure that we're filling in those gaps with it being a new curriculum, so we're stretching into 3rd grade as well. For math, if you see, again, we did go down 1%, but from the spring to this fall, we're up 5%, so something happened over the summer there, so we'll take that. If you look at the next slide, again, we're going down to 4 columns here instead of 5, so we increased those that are above proficient by 3%. If you add up the partially and did not match, you're at 39% last year, and now we're only at 19%. So again, those cut scores make a drastic difference. For our math goal, it looks very similar. We're trying to increase by 1%, but more importantly, we want to see that aggressive and typical growth from the fall to the spring. So we're hoping to have no less than 20% with a flat growth. We have a lot of the same action goals that we do with math as we do with ELA. So you'll see a lot of similar vocabulary there with the intervention blocks and the small groups and the benchmarks and the CFAs. With our SEL goals in our data, we want to make sure that we have at least 90% of our students in that low risk category, and we have met that pretty much every year for the past handful of years, so we're really proud of that. We need to make sure that our students are ready to learn, right? Like at 2nd and 3rd grade, if their individual needs are not being met, then they're not going to be able to learn the instruction that we need them to. So we do have our students at 2nd and 3rd grade take their own SABRs. Chrissy was talking about how only her teachers fill it out. This data is the teachers' data, not the students. But we also have a new social worker and a new psych. So we're implementing lots of new things at Parkside. For example, we have our Eagle Academy that Chrissy talked about as well. We kind of cover a lot of the same things. Every Friday we give out Eagle Way Awards. These are little certificates that the students can be issued from any staff member just for going above and beyond for any number of things. During our morning meeting, we have a mindful moment. As soon as we get to the classroom, the first thing they do is an SEL curriculum. Our teachers are doing minor tallies on just basic behavior they're seeing within the classroom. We have an SEL team, we have a universal team, we have an SEB team, we have all kinds of committees that meet to talk about students. We have a character assembly each month that I run with each grade level that we talk about a different word that we kind of focus on for the month. Our students can earn positive behavior assemblies. So we just earned our last golden egg today. So our students are earning that for next Friday where they'll get to do pumpkin bowling. So that'll be fun. Next week is Red Ribbon Week. So we'll be dressing up for all of those days. We got all kinds of fun SEL things going on. And then last is attendance. We can't get that ELA and math up if our students aren't at school. So this is something that we are really, really pushing this year. From 24 to 25, we were down almost 1.5%, so we'll take that. I would like to point out that we are at 15.3% and the state average is 25.4. So even though we would like to get it down, we are well below the state average. And then the last thing is I do still kind of believe that our attendance data is a little skewed just because it is still kind of early in the school year, but we do want to get that down as low as we can. Currently, we are at 91% of our students that are at 90% or higher of attendance, so that is great. We also had 24% of our students that had perfect attendance. So I gave out perfect attendance little certificates, and it took me 2 days to get through all of them. So that is a good problem to have. All of the ways that we do attendance are very similar to what East does. We talk about data at our staff meetings, at our weekly newsletter that I send out. We are starting to send out weekly thrill share messages to families, encouraging them to get their students there. We have the 3 letters that we send out at different thresholds. We have attendance club. We will be polling names on Mondays as well for those students that are in attendance. So just anything we can do to encourage them to be there, and talking to parents about what we can do to help them get their kids there as well. Any questions?
A lot of K-5 stuff is very similar, so I feel like I'm going to try to make this very simple for you this evening because besides our data, most of the things that we're doing K-5 are pretty consistent for our kiddos. So if you look up here, it's our ELA historical data with our FastBridge data. Overall, we saw a decrease in the proficiency and a little bit of an increase on the high risk. So if you look across, it's pretty, we're pretty stagnant across there. So we are aware of that, and now we need to put some action into it. But I have to say our teachers are working extremely hard. They're very aware of the data. But if you go into our IAR data, I have to say this was a little confusing at first going down to 4, but we are making a lot of progress here. We had 6.3 increase in students scoring above proficient and proficient. So that indicates that overall achievement is going up. And there was a decrease in that below proficient category. What's super exciting is we are seeing kids in that approaching proficient category moving on. So we're seeing them kind of move from that low end to that high end. So we know we're doing things to get to that grade level expectation. So our goals for this year are 44% of our students demonstrate typical or aggressive growth from fall to spring with a 2% increase from last year. We will also have 49% of our students at or above proficiency. And the reason why we're going to maintain that is the last couple of years we kept seeing this drop, right? Like we're like, what's going on? Why does this keep dropping? So what we want to do is break that downward trend. So we want to maintain where we are with proficiency at kids meeting that benchmark level. Our IAR goal, we want to see a 2% increase there for 53% of our students will meet or exceed at the IAR. Many of the action steps that you see here are very similar to what they're doing at East and Parkside. Something that's a little different is last year we implemented departmentalizing across 4th and 5th grade. It has been fantastic. So if you aren't aware of this, students have 2 teachers instead of 1. So one teacher teaches the ELA content, the other teaches the math, science, social studies, and then they flip. It has been great to see teachers are able to hone into one content area, and students kind of get that feel of middle school and start organizing them and getting them ready for the day. It has been great. We also were able to designate title blocks during the day, so students, every teacher knows exactly when they're going to go to a tier intervention, so they're not missing that tier 1 instruction. We need tier 1 instruction for all of our kids. And we do the reading initiatives, which are a big deal right now with the new vending machine. So they get tokens if they are a top reader, and we're able to get books in the hands of our students. We have small group instruction going on. Mrs. Newell has been an amazing instructional coach, getting in and doing some cycles with us in our classrooms. We've seen some really cool things with teachers observing each other for best strategies and best practices. And then our PLTs are just knocking it out of the park, going into those unit planning and CFAs and really looking at our student data and who's getting it, who's not, and what do we do and act on it promptly. For math historical data, we didn't see a change in our college pathway or low risk. So like you see, it's the last several, let's see, winter, spring, and fall have been sitting at that 48%. So we're like, we know, hey, now's the time to take the move and make the jump with our kids that we currently have here. Our IAR data, we saw a 7.3% increase of that above proficient and proficient. So those, if you see that jump, and our approaching, we made a big gain there. So it's kind of tricky because that low proficient looks like, well, we're kind of staying there, but when you go from 5 to 4, it's really hard to sometimes compare that data. But we are seeing an increase, and I feel like we're headed in the right direction with our IAR data. We'd like to see 51% of our students show typical or aggressive growth from start score on the FastBridge Math assessment from fall to spring, so that's another 2% increase. And then 50% of our students will achieve proficiency in the spring with a 2% increase. And the same thing with IAR. This is the area that I feel like our teachers are really digging into, looking at our skills. And then it gets tricky in 4th and 5th grade because K through 3, they do a lot of skills, right? Building those skills. When they get to 4th and 5th grade, it becomes that application piece, taking the skill and applying it. So getting them to think that critical thinking and how to apply it to things. We have something that's different with math goals for our action steps is the enrichment groups. Our STEAM teacher, Mrs. Rule, pulls 4th grade and a 5th grade enrichment group, and they're doing something really cool this year. It's through Odyssey, so it's a lot of problem solving. They have a problem, and then they build it and do this critical, and they have a chance to go and compete on it in Belleville in February. So it's pretty exciting. They have to raise their own funds for this, for their materials. They are kicking off, and I feel like they are just itching to get going on this. So if you ever have time to stop out and see STEAM, it is pretty exciting to see that hands-on. Something else that I think most of this is the same as ELA with their PLTs, like reviewing the standards, looking at CFAs, and then really digging into that small group instruction for sure. Our SEL data has pretty much stayed the same over the past couple of years. As you see, like the fall is the purple. Well, I feel like kids are really excited to be at school, and then by spring they're kind of like, okay. But something that's different at Meadowbrook is this is student data. So students take the SABRE, and we look at the percent of students in low risk. So this is their feedback that they give us. But overall, they are making gains, and we know that our students are ready to come into school. And this also allows us to kind of look at classrooms and push in staff in those areas as well. Got ahead of myself here. Let's see. So our goal is to increase that by 2%. And what we'd like to do is kind of get out of that slipping down in the spring if we could keep them maintain that into the fall and keep going forward. But we do a lot of the same SEL things as you see at East and Parkside with Tier 1 implementing those Meadowbrook Hero Cards. You probably see it all over Facebook. We put 2 good behavior assemblies on our student advisory. That's student-led behavior assemblies, which is really exciting. Sometimes I'm like, what idea are they going to bring? And yes, we're staying safe with no injuries this year or anything like that. We do have our school-wide behavior system to reinforce positive behaviors. We use Class Dojo. Every Friday they get to use their points and buy from the ticket store. We do Caring Classroom Community. We do a mindful moment. And if you noticed, our student advisory students have started doing our mindful moment every Thursday, so it's student-led. And now I have kids asking, can I sign up for our morning meeting and do mindful moments? So getting kids involved and getting the day started with them is super exciting. We do a lot of Tier 1, Tier 2, check-in, check-out. Tier 3 is our small group SEL. And then our nurse maintains a cares closet, so we're meeting those needs outside of the school day as well. But we're doing a lot of the same things there. We're getting more family engagement opportunities because we do feel it's important to bring our families into our school to see what's going on and make that partnership with them. And let's see, attendance. So we did see an increase, as you can see, with the chronic absenteeism. But I do feel like we are on it across the district this year, especially with kind of that attendance MTSS we have with the letters, doing the positive reinforcement. So our goal is to, I think it's on the next one, is to lower that by 2%. I think we could do more than 2%, but I don't want to like shoot us in the foot or anything with that. But monthly attendance letters are going on. We have an attendance club as well. We have an amazing Stacy Dar. She meets with our kids. They track their own attendance data. And so we had, I think, 3 kids graduate out of that, and we do a big deal with them. And we did our first quarter perfect attendance this morning, and we had to go to the foyer. I don't know Mrs. Cazero, but we had a ton of kids. I probably should have counted it, and they were so excited and proud. Don't think we've had that many before. I thought, oh, this will go really fast. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to shoo them to the foyer. There were so many. So I was super excited to see them excited about being at school. One thing I did want to say, sorry, I know we're going back, but we just had our benchmark meetings, and I meant to mention this about our tier group. So we track how many kids go in and out of our tiers. So tier 3 being the most intense. We had 32 students either go down a tier or be released from tiers just in 1 quarter, and we only had 8 go up or had to receive like a targeted tier. So our tiers are working. That's kudos to our teachers and our title team putting in the work for our tier 1 instruction. So that was a huge shout out to them. So we are seeing some gains and progress at Meadowbrook. And I think that's it. Okay. Any questions?
Thank you.
Shelby and I did not plan on dressing alike, but we kind of did tonight. So, all right. So mine should go pretty quick because many have already explained. So for our ELA Fast Bridge data, we saw a 2% increase from last year's fall to this year's fall benchmarking. With our IAR data, we show an increase by 2% in the amount of students that were considered exceeds or above proficient. And then also, if we compare the meets from the years past and proficient, we increased by 8% for ELA. So our goal this year is we're really focusing on those bubble kids. So those kids that are approaching proficient, we want to get them into proficient. So we want our scores to increase by 2% from approaching proficient to proficient. Of course, we want to raise our proficient to above proficient, but really focusing on the bubbles kids that are almost there, but not quite there yet. All right, so for our math historical data, we showed just a 1% increase from last year's fall to this year's fall. And then for our math historical data, I do want to preface this by saying that we anticipated that we might have a drop in our math scores. We had a beloved teacher pass away last year, and then having different subs and different people in and out of that classroom to try to teach math, as well as we did have a teacher take an extended maternity leave, so we were kind of down 2 math teachers last year. So I just wanted to say that our goal for next year, or for this school year, is the same thing. We want to move those kids from approaching proficient to proficient because we had 46.4% in approaching proficient, and we want to definitely raise the proficiency and above proficient for that. All right, so SEL historical data, we use the 5 essentials for our students to determine this, and bathroom and hallway safety is always a focus for our students. It's those unstructured times where students can maybe not feel safe or get into some trouble due to TikTok trends in the bathroom, things like that. So our goal is we would like to raise our points by 5 points on the 5 essentials. One new thing we're doing this year, and Mr. Reinecke did a wonderful job getting this set up, we're using Securely Hall Pass. So students, when they sign out to use the restroom, they sign out on their computer. The teachers have to allow them to sign out. They have to click a button on their end. But it also shows our teachers, okay, hey, there's already 3 students in this restroom, so it shows up red for our teachers. So, we got to wait to use the restroom. Or so-and-so is not supposed to be in the restroom together. It'll show, and then it'll also indicate, So there's some really cool things about this that we're really excited about, and we just rolled that out to start second quarter, so we're getting used to it. We're tweaking things, and we're eventually going to be able to use it for hallway. If there are students that shouldn't be in the hallway together, things like that, it'll notify teachers if they ask to leave. So we're hoping that that helps with our students feeling safe in the bathroom and hallways. And our attendance data. When I saw this, I about cried, but it's okay, we can only go up, right? So our attendance data did drop quite a bit, so our chronically absent students did increase. We are still not as high as the state average, but we definitely have room to grow. We did have some illness hit us last year in November and February where lots of staff and students were out for various reasons. The flu hit us hard last year. So we, for attendance, we are doing what everyone else has talked about, where we're sending those positives text messages for those that are 90% or above. And then so those, what we like to call our bubble kids, are those between the 80 and 89% threshold, sending out those notifications to parents as well. And then really focusing on our chronically absent students try and incentivize them to come to school. Tomorrow, all of our students are going to take a survey to identify staff members that they feel safe with, and we're going to use that data to connect kids that maybe didn't put anybody down, or then also share that with data like, hey, this student put you down as someone that they feel connected with, and then use that to try to help these teachers also meet with these kids, because they can hear it from the administrators all day long, but it helps when we have more people trying to make positive impact. So, any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you. I gotta move around. All right, so CM, are you guys still with me right now? Because that's been a lot of data. We're going to start with a 10-question quiz to see what you remember here. No, I seriously do love school improvement planning because I think it sets your tone and your vision for the school year. They have mentioned a lot of the same information here, and I would like to take you back to the 2023 school year. On that year, we had the SAT test. 2024, they redesigned the SAT, totally different, the new SAT. And then we were fortunate last year to have the ACT. So our teachers have had 3 tests in 3 years. So with that change from the SAT to the ACT, and as they mentioned, right sizing, it's hard to compare apples to apples, right? But I will do my best shot at that. And that highlighter green there is the best that I can do to compare apples to apples and show you what the ACT looked like compared to the SAT. And you will see growth all along the way, and that is really awesome. So proud of my teachers. 33% of our students met or exceeded on that. But however, with that said, they right-sized it. As Dr. Smith said, for years, College Board had a number here. That's what it meant to get into college. SIU, University of Kentucky. This is what you needed. But the state of Illinois, under Governor Ronner, said, let's raise those numbers up. There was no science behind it. It didn't make sense. But now that they've right-sized it, look at our number. 53% of our students meeting or exceeding on it. So with change comes more change here. And so for years, we have used the Horizons assessment to gauge where our students at. The Horizons assessment is designed to mimic an SAT, ACT. Well, that company got bought out by a company called Progress Learning, which we actually love, but it does come with some cautionary tales here. If you look at our 9th grade data, beginning of the year in freshmen, 23% proficient and above. I should mention that grammar is not really a standard for our K-8 students. So that's where you can see our students coming in at 23%. But if you flip over to 10th grade here, where we have been working on that, you can see 67% of our students are proficient or above. Now, that is cautionary because it's the first time we've used Progress Learning. It's almost, we feel that those numbers are overinflated. We hope that they're not, because that number would be awesome to start the school year off with. And if you go to our 11th grade, and 11th grade is the most important to us because this is our class that is tested. This is the class that goes on the school report card. And once again, we're cautionary about our data because it says 64% of our students are meeting or exceeding. Last year, we ended at 53%. So if we could get 64, that would be awesome. So as we started looking at our school goal going into next year, which I will come back to, reading here. Now that is a skill that is taught. 45% of our freshmen are currently proficient and above. If you look at our 10th grade, 74% are currently listed as proficient and above. In our 11th grade, that really important class, 70%. So these numbers seem extremely high. That's why we're cautionary with Progress Learning. Are the numbers overinflated? We won't know until we get some more trend data on there. So as we started setting our goals, we went back to what's called the 10th grade pre-ACT. That's an official assessment by ACT. So we took our current 11th graders, the tested group, we looked at their 10th grade, and last year 55% of our students were proficient or above. So we set our goal, pretty aggressive to be quite honest, at 65% of our students. And when you think back, last year 53%, and if we could get 65, that would be extremely awesome. With the changes, that was a big shock to us, reading is not assessed on a state report card. And it is, but for us, reading is a hallmark skill. It's a cornerstone skill. So we're going to continue to monitor it because that is for college and career readiness. So we took it from 44% and our end of the year goal is 54%. Changes, CFA transition. For years, we built our CFAs on Google Forms. We had to find ACT, SAT type questions. It's built into Progress Learning. So we are all transferring that, which gives us a more robust assessment system. We're going to differentiate it because it took so long to build these assessments. Now we can cater it to the individual class and the individual student. We're doing a lot of ACT data review. We just took that practice ACT test. We're looking through those reading and ELA skills and really targeting certain indicators on that. And something that we noticed last year with our students is reading stamina. For a high school student to sit down and read an article is really difficult. So that is just a baseline that we are working on. And PLC, data-driven adjustments. We want to use all of our PLC time to make data-rich decisions. For so long, we spent so much time going back to that first one, building CFAs, inputting the data. Now we get our data just like within seconds, so we can make action statements to it. So that's what we have going on for ELA. Now math here, once again, it's the same tell, 3 tests in 3 years. Look at 2023. Look at that purple. 14.5 of our students were proficient. That is when the PLC conversation really got deep, and we knew that we had to make changes to our curriculum. That's when the state average was 25.9. Now, if I look at that highlighter green and I try to compare apples to apples, this year, 29%. That's apples to apples. You just looked 2 years ago, 14.5. Is that not incredible? And then once you right-size that data, 39% of our students are now on target. So those are adjustments that we're seeing. Once again, our progress learning, we are concerned about our 9th grade students coming in. This is our beginning of the year test before much instruction has started. 12% of our students are considered proficient or above. So we got to work on that to grow those numbers. If you go into our 10th grade, you can see 56% of our students are now proficient and above. Once again, it's that cautionary tale. Is it the new test? Is our numbers overinflated? We're not sure because we don't have trend data with this new assessment tool. Our 11th graders who will be tested are currently at 48%, which we use that data to go into our goal for next year. So as 10th graders, 34% of our students were considered proficient or above. So by the end of the school year, once they go from sophomores to juniors to the official ACT, we hope to hit 40%. That is a very aggressive growth considering last year's juniors were 29%. Then you go 3 years before, 14.5. How amazing would that be? And it's once again that transition with our CFAs on progress learning. Now we're able to build robust assessments much quicker and use the data to make data action decisions. We're differentiating those CFAs by content, whether that's stats, pre-calc, algebra, honors algebra. We're able to really differentiate. We're doing an ACT data review. Our teachers work on the ACT and they actually take the ACT because we have 2 new math teachers, so it's really important that we get them accustomed to that test and what's on there, and they've already been going through that. The math ACT, I would argue, is one of the most difficult portions of the test. So that's why you will see a second semester ACT study hall, and we will do a 2-week boot camp on that. So that is our plans in math. Our SEL, which is related to our 5 essentials, our 5 essentials data has been strong. We're very proud of those numbers, but we want to dig into that SEL component of it. And so this year we have an MTSS coordinator, and this year we're focusing on really bringing all of our systems together. We offer START, ACE, these are SEL-based classes, but we wanted to bring in a research-based curriculum, and that's the core curriculum where we can monitor students. It's pretty cool to see all the SEL stuff going on at the high school, whether it's PE, whether it's in our classes, pre and post test, where we can go in with fidelity and know that we are making SEL changes for our students. And lastly, when it comes to attendance, look at that, 16% of our students. If you look among high schools in our county and in our conference, we are near the bottom when it comes to absenteeism, and as Deb pointed out, 25.4 is the average. So when you start getting to those low numbers like 16, you're not going to see that data like we're anticipating in math and ELA like 10%. So we want to decrease that by just 1% for next year on this. So our goal is to go from 16 to 15%. Now we're getting into the scenario where it's not just introducing new practices, it's holding on to past practices that have worked and having that analysis. A new practice we brought in this year, September, is National Attendance Month. So we did a big ceremony. I don't know if you got to see Mr. Jarman and Mr. Meyer when they dyed their hair. That was a part of the ceremony. Miss Resnick's class fell just short. I was going to shave my head. That didn't happen. They fell just short, but it was a lot of fun. We have introduced student and parent progress reports. So just like the report card, our students get progress reports on attendance, as do the parents. And we send those text messages. That is a practice that we've been doing for a couple of years now that works very well. And we focus a lot on those bubble kids. Hey, we would love to see your kid on Monday morning. And we send those messages out to our students via email, just trying to raise that encouragement. This year we did a student survey on attendance, on why do you not come to school? What is the barriers keeping you from coming? That's the nice thing about high school, you can just ask the student. And one question that really stuck out to us was, if I didn't show up to school, would anybody notice? We had 50 kids who marked nobody would notice. So you know what we did? We printed that list, we gave it to the teachers, and we said, when that student is not at school, we want you to make them feel noticed. And teacher did it the first week. Kid wrote back the nicest email saying, hey, I'm so happy that you noticed me. It makes me feel cared for, that I have somebody who reaches out. And at the end of the day, it's all about relationships to get kids there, which led us to the next piece, attendance support conversation. So what we're doing, two facets. We are inviting our parents in and our students just for an attendance conversation. What are your barriers to getting to school? And students who have missed, because at high school, if you're unexcused, you get detentions. If the parent will come in and have a meeting with us, we will take detentions off, because our whole goal is to get you to school. Let's have that productive conversation. What is it preventing you from getting there? And so I do want to compliment our faculty, our staff for all their contributions to this. Great job to the K-8s as well. I'm excited about all the good stuff because that will lead up to the high school. Any questions? Thank you.